Doug, good morning.
Hi there, Mele Kileki Maka.
Man, I see people diving off diving boards and stuff. Isn't that what they said it in Christmas Vacation there in the swimming pool?
I seen that, but I really don't even know what it means. I've never looked it up. Any of you guys ever looked it up? Mele Kileki Maka. You know the song. It's a great song.
Yeah, I was
Palm
listening.
trees.
I was listening to an autobiography of Kevin Hart this weekend. He was telling a joke about Asian tattoos and what they may or may not mean.
That's true. That's really good. My boys like one of his shows. I can't say it right now, but they love one of his shows. It involves a cold plunge.
He let me finish the book. Maybe I'll recommend it next week. How's that?
That's fair.
He's had some amazing, profound wisdom in there so far. So that's. I added a new disclaimer this week. This show may induce feelings of happiness. Consult your grumpy friend before use. So we think it's kind of a fun way to spend a half hour Friday. What do you think?
I enjoy it. I don't know if anyone else enjoys it. I think my mom does.
It's mom's responsibility. She should.
Yeah, I know. Moms are supportive like that.
My mom was aggressive in supporting me, man. She was feisty.
Like give me what comes to mind when you think of your mom showing up for you?
Well, the school teachers in Evansville, like they had before internet and texting, I think they just had telepathy where they just communicated with each other. Because like I'd be tearing up stuff, like getting in trouble, and
Not my Keith.
She would know before I get home from school. I don't know how they did that, but she would assume I didn't do it until I was innocent until proven guilty. But the track record would have suggested the opposite of that. Seldom were the accusations not true. So
unconditional love.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
So hey, I noticed that we have this guy right here today.
Mr. Stonks.
And Mr. Stonks. For all you guys who do not know about Mr. Stonks, he's just this fictional character. But was it last Saturday? I believe last Saturday there was a big event that every kid who's, I don't know, maybe 6 to age 24 or 5, maybe 30 would understand. Fortnite launched some kind of new thing, this game Fortnite, and it was a 2 p.m. launch, and I think 10 million people logged on. And somehow the servers handled all this.
Yeah.
And it was a new launch. So last night, one of my boys tells me, Dad, Mr. Stonks, you can have a skin. It's just like, covers your character in the game. You can have a skin of Mr. Stonks in the game. How cool is that?
There you go.
So anyway.
Well, I didn't catch what ages you said, but Caleb's 21 and his 24-year-old sister was having a conversation about that thing with him. So I didn't jump in like into the polar plunge with them. I just heard enough to process that something big happened. So I'm glad you could bring the details of what it was.
We had every device at the Shreve house going, and our Wi-Fi is like straight from NASA. It's really good.
That's good.
They had it cranking.
Smoke coming off the server. I love it. Well, shall we jump into the market? The S&P 500.
It's doing what I like. I don't know what your thoughts will be on this, Keith. I think they'll probably be similar to mine. This Mark Minervini or our friend Patrick, or maybe our friend Mike Webster, I don't know who it was, but he said, always be ready for the opposite side of the trade. And what we have is we've got a little shelf that's building on the S&P 500. And that sideways motion is basically buyers and sellers keeping it tight. And I've been really encouraged by that because this past October, it was not feeling so wonderful.
So we went to the Chris Kindle market in Carmel last night, and it was a spectacular thing. But in my travels over time, I have avoided places with long lines, and there are a lot of it's a cool thing, but there are a lot of long lines.
Yeah.
But what we like to see are not. I mean, on the upside, we don't mind a long line like these
Yeah, we
days
like
here.
those.
But if you look on the downside over here and you see all the long lines, that tells you there's a lot of emotions in the market, and that's a hard time to make money when the emotions are running big. And that's what we've seen right here is these lines have just got shorter and shorter and shorter. I'd show up there. I'd go hang out there. Not Disney. Sorry, guys at Disney. But there, that's a market that's looking like something good might happen in the days ahead. So yeah, it's really cool.
Folks, when you see this index, the S&P 500, yes, there are 500 companies, but as Keith has brought up before, these aren't like equally represented here. And so when we show the S&P 500, what you're really seeing is you're seeing a makeup of individual companies, but the big ones, they might have a little more emphasis to the price than maybe somebody who just hasn't been performing that well.
And that's I sent you a kind of a commentary on that last week. It's pretty much at an extraordinary level right now. Well, I don't know, the Magnificent Eight or Fab Eight or whatever they call them, they're driving a good percentage of what's going on in the market. And ultimately, what would really be cool is if it became less and less of those eight, and some companies that we haven't seen as much of in the past come barreling ahead and drive this market. That would be remarkable.
I mean, there was a time where like AT&T would have been a dominant player in the S&P 500 or Coca-Cola. But as with companies and innovation and better services and just changing their times, some drop off. And so when we say the Magnificent Eight, they are the hot stocks. I mean, they're the ones that, I mean, you guys all use their products. We use their products. We love their products. We rely on them. But yeah, they have heavy influences right now on the S&P 500.
So I take it, and this is not a recommendation. We're not recommending any securities on this conversation.
Education.
This is for you. We do this for you. We have fun because we enjoy each other, but this is for you. So I'm giving you 1998 AT&T. We have a lot of our followers that spent time working there. And in 1998, beginning of 1999, it hit $59.94. A little bit later, it's $59.88. 59, that was the high there. And then 58.88. Those were all lower highs, which sometimes will give you a red light that you might want to pay attention. But basically $60 in the late 1990s and early 2000s hit a high after dropping off from that level of $43 in 2007, dropped all the way, wrong button there, dropped all the way to $20.90 in Halloween 2008. That was a scary time. I digress. But then it rallied back up in 2016 to 43.89 as the highest. So it never hit the $60 level since 1999, and it's been hovering down. Well, this is, I'm not up to date. Let me go back to today. It was as low as 13.43 this year.
And you could have the best dividend in the world.
Yep.
But it's hard to make up for that decrease in capital.
It is. I just show you this because if we're going to have a transition in the S&P 500 from those Fab 8, people tend to get emotionally connected. Like,
sure,
we've probably told our friends that had worked at AT&T 100 times, I know you love where you work, but maybe you want to sell some of this.
Yeah.
Because it is emotional. It's like I'm leaving somebody I love a lot to sell a stock like that. But there's no assurance that just because you work somewhere that stock's going to continue to move upward. And so that may or may not be true with the Fab 8. It may not happen now. It may not happen the next month or two, but one day it will. Like,
and
stocks.
We all love those cell phones that come out of the state of Washington. But eventually there will be some gal in a garage who creates something more marvelous, and it gets the attention of the S&P 500. Then
It just happens. It's just
beautiful.
so along that line, have you heard of the new restaurant Cosmic?
Do I want you to take me there?
I don't know. Have you all heard of Cosmic? It is.
Oh yes, I have. I read about this week. This is the new McDonald's thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's always something new.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe Coca-Cola came out with the new Coke in the mid-'80s, almost blew up the company back then.
Right.
And so McDonald's, I don't eat there much. I'm not a big McDonald's guy, but like they're risking something. Do they?
I think so.
Phil told me about Chick-fil-A, so that's much better than Chick-fil-A breakfast. But Cosmic is McDonald's taking risk.
Yeah.
Right. Like they could blow the thing up. I'm sure they're going to take risk reasonably, but there's always something new. There's just always something new. And that's what keeps it real in the stock market.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Cosmic, if you go there, who's going to go there before we see a Cybertruck? Maybe we'll see what happens first.
Yeah, it's fun stuff to just realize the world is changing. I think as you get some years behind you, you get a little anxious about it, but it transforming to the new thing because you're used to the old thing. But it's okay. We're going to be okay.
We talked about the S&P 500, and really all other markets look similar. they're building that shell, and that's encouraging. Whether it be the Nasdaq, the S&P 500. Even the small companies, the medium-sized companies have started to improve here lately. They're not quite as pretty of a picture, but they have started to improve, and they're above that 200-day line that Keith and I like to talk about.
I never cheered. Early on, I cheered for Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Like early in his career, because I
did not.
Yeah.
I sold out Pacers, so I was not very open-minded.
But once he started dominating, I quit cheering for him. And that's probably been true in a lot of things. Like over the years when I cheered for a lot of different sports teams, once they dominate, it's like, all right, let's get somebody new. So like to cheer for the underdog, I guess kind of what I'm saying is that the small companies are kind of I'm not investing much in them, but I love to see small companies excel.
It's my favorite index to look at.
Right.
Just for that very reason. And speaking of Pacers, if you watched the Pacers last night, they are now going to the finals of the what do they call that? The inter-league tournament or
inter-season tournament, I think, or early season or something. Yeah, Caleb was explaining it to me.
And I'm watching the game last night, and the Pacers uniform has the Air Jordan logo on it. And so I'm so happy you brought this up, because when I'm watching it, I'm having this mental complex. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm now fine with Michael Jordan being on the Pacers uniform. How did he get on the Pacers uniform? Good job, Michael Jordan. That's impressive.
I think it's great. I think that's another picture of the possibilities. Here's some young kid back in the 70s.
I never would have cheered on Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
That he landed on the Pacers uniform.
I love it. America, what a great place to live. This we already talked about the short lines, but this particular, the CBOE volatility index, when this thing gets low, it means the lines are short in the marketplace. When it gets high, they're having high lines. And so I just want to show you that we're in a really good place for this market to do positive things. And
look how it's going sideways.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times this one goes up and down and up and down. Well, it's the name of the index.
what I really like to see is they talk about a Santa Claus rally. I would like to see this thing start picking up a little bit, adding some length to it, and spike up right towards the end of the year, because that would suggest, just because it spikes up doesn't mean things are going down. Right. I'd really love this thing to spike up and you guys start making money in the markets. Yeah, that's what I'd love to see here.
Yeah, well, we will see. We'll see by next week what happens.
We're getting there. So can I get personal on here today?
Depends, but I think you're going to anyway.
So I saw this headline yesterday. Big bank CEOs warn new regulations could harm the economy. sound like they're serving up their own food. They're like, we need less regulations at the bank. But the headline, I agreed with it, and I woke up at 6:30 this morning thinking that, because when I took my first step out of bed, I almost did a face plant, because I occasionally will have a gout flare up. And it has everything to do with that headline. And I went to research it for you all, and I'll just read you what I found in this article. It said a study out Tuesday found the price of the gout drug colchicine increased significantly over the last decade due to an FDA policy decision in 2010, leading to lower use and poorer disease control. We're here from the government to help you, right?
Yeah.
If you've ever had a gout attack, you want to just beat your head on the table. And it said, as a result, the price of a prescription for the therapeutic gout drug increased nearly 16-fold, from $11.25 for a container of it to $190 in 2011. According to the study, out-of-pocket costs for patients who took the drug jumped more than fourfold, from $737 to $39.49 over that same period. The use of colchicine dropped 17% during this time and 27% over the entire decade. And so what happened, and this is my opinion, what happens with regulations is big corporations want more regulations. Yeah. And so this drug colchicine,
explain that.
Well, if
why they want more regulations.
Yeah, so if I'm just we'll pick on McDonald's and Cosmic, and if I'm doing $100 million in sales in coffee, and our friends at any coffee roasters are doing $1 million in sales in coffee, and if they can increase the regulation for the FDA for coffee businesses just to 1% of their business, so that it goes from 100 million, they have to pay $1 million in regulations. That $1 million in regulations could run our friends right out of business, and that's how it works. So what happened with colchicine? It's a little bitty pill. It's like the tip of a pen. It's so small. It's purple.
It's efficient. And
it was it's been used for, I think, over 50 years, and there was no need to reintroduce it to the FDA because it's been proven, the efficacy has been proven. But in 2010, and I don't know which company did it, kind of worked with their buddies at the FDA and said, hey, this thing isn't registered with the FDA. It needs to be re-registered. And so the generic drug people got the pressures to make them re-register it, and so it's had that. That's what caused the 16-fold. They didn't change anything in the colchicine other than the regulations they added to it. So that, anyway, like you can. I had this article, and I didn't realize I was going to wake up this morning wanting to take up colchicine. So I think the colchicine used to cost me like 25 cents or something stupid, but they're about $5. But I'm like popping them like Rolaids or something today. So that's a real life example that I didn't know was going to pop in there.
That's going to be something that we see, I think, in the next election cycle, is what to do with artificial intelligence and how, and should it be regulated? What type of technology should be regulated? You're going to hear about it with the presidential cycle and election. What about communication? What about X and Twitter? And that regulation really does benefit the bottom line of whoever has the most power in that industry.
It is, and that's when we were talking about AT&T just recently. 1984, I think, was divestiture, where the regulations ultimately, I think, they ebb and flow, is when you kind of get that monopolistic power like AT&T had in the early 1980s. Eventually somebody said, we got to break this up and let other people compete in this situation. So they split that thing up into 8 or 9 companies, I can't remember. And then we started having competition in the phone business in the mid 80s on out. And I wouldn't be surprised that if we get different leadership in different ways, that's how the regulations are addressed, because you've got those magnificent 7 or 8 companies that can dominate our culture and our economy, and at some point they're probably going to be similar to it, like the phone company was in the 80s. But we'll see what happens. Well, holiday spending is estimated by Deloitte to be up 14% this year. Any guess at what the average person's going to spend on the holidays this year?
Oh goodness, I don't know.
It's 1,652. I didn't see what the average meant, like if it meant average household or average, because there's no way we're spending $3,200. I don't think like that. I have to go shut down the credit cards if we're spending that kind of money.
Well, yeah, I mean, with travel, I mean, if you include all that, travel, gifts, food, I could see 1,600.
That's a big deal.
I mean, 1,600 will get a family of 4. I mean, would you be able to fly anywhere for 6?
No, I don't think it's talking about travel. I think it's what you're throwing under the tree.
Oh,
just under the tree. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's I guess along those lines, I saw another headline. Oh, a headline, it was an article from our friend Brian Westbury. And what he was talking about is the new home prices are much lower today than they were a year ago. The average price of new home sold in October was down 10.4%. But the median price was down 17.6 over the last year, 17.6% price of a house, which would suggest to you that inflation has settled down, right?
Yeah, it would. Did you see the unemployment numbers today?
I didn't.
Like 3.7% or something like that. I mean, that's the interesting factor to me.
Well, and what this article from Westbury is saying is that when the politicians get into packaging the information, you may not get the right story. And what he went on to, and I can send you guys this article, or I can summarize it to you, is basically the cost of a home hasn't gone down over the last year. The builders, just like McDonald's wanting to compete with Cosmic, the builders have realized that most people can't borrow as much money as they could a year ago. So builders are building smaller homes, and the price per square foot has continued to go up over last year. So that the average price of a house might have dropped, but it's because they're building smaller houses.
That type of thing. Like once you unlock that code, you see it everywhere. You see that with new cars and EPA estimates per gallon and what they're doing with shortening wheelbases, elonging wheelbases. I mean, just to play games on the EPA. I mean, it's all one giant game.
And it's not, and I'm the pro capitalist. It's not the builders, not the car manufacturers. It's the regulations. It's the inflation that's injected to the system that causes people to
good job to the capitalists for being able.
Well, they could have just given up and stopped selling houses, right? So we're going to be able to sell you a house, even though you don't like the 8% mortgage compared to 4%. We're going to build a little micro house that you can move into. So that's the way the economy works, right?
Not bad.
Yeah. I can't remember if I talked about my bag of Fritos that I looked at about a month ago. We put Fritos in our chili, and the bag was inflated. Like it could have been a pillow, right? Like and the government wants you to think it's Frito-Lay that's the problem, but they're the ones that keep shrinking your dollars. And it was like $9 for a bag of Fritos. And I'm like, I do not like Fritos, $9 worth. Nothing against Fritos, but at some point, people begin to substitute, buy smaller houses, buy off-brand corn chips or whatever they might do. But yeah, that idea from Westbury is really thought-provoking for me.
That's good.
Yeah. What else, Doug?
Well, I was thinking about financial planning issues and challenges that maybe you all are facing or that we hear about. And one of the things that popped up this week is having a conversation with a friend who said his financial guy told him he's got a 90% chance of retiring early. And I just kept my poker face as best as I could on that. But a 90% chance of what? I mean,
85% of all statistics are made up on this spot.
I mean, and so Phil, our industry does a disservice because we have all these great financial planning forecasters out there, and we can subscribe to these systems that will forecast and say, well, if you do this and this and this, it will equal that. And that is true if those variables do come in line. But you might become a grandparent quicker than you thought you would. Who knows what could happen in your life?
Or when you become a grandparent, you could become a parent again.
Exactly.
That's our culture has all these crazy things that are shifting that haven't ever really been the case.
You could be the sandwich generation. You could be taking care of your parents and taking taking care of your kids at the same time. The Monte Carlo report, the forecaster doesn't tell you anything about that.
Or even your uncle.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But but anyway, so that's my beef on the financial planning industry. And I think the solution, okay, I don't want to just be a griper. Here's the solution is you need to find somebody who can listen. Larry King was a great interviewer because he didn't come with a whole bunch of preparation and stuff. He listened. He would listen, and then he would discern, and then he'd make a statement. And so that's what you need, is you need a friend who can do that for you on your behalf. And the regulators, they don't even like that. They like you checking boxes in our industry. That if you can find somebody who will listen and then ask you a follow-up and then take action on the important things, you're winning. And it's probably going to be like, maybe you have a year of chaos or two. Maybe you have a season where it's good. But those times when you need somebody to listen to, it's just the industry is not heading that direction. They're not here to listen to you.
Yeah, I gave my opinions after a bunch of years of doing this business, and
Number one's my favorite.
think differently. And number two is buy wisdom. And we're just advocates of that, whether it's us or I have a guy that helps me find cars that has wisdom, and he helps me sort through my thoughts on that. But you can find wisdom in most any area that you need help with. And so to tell you how statistics really don't tell you, because we can make statistics look any way you want, but one of the statistics I saw this week, that there is a man approaching the all-time NFL record of most losses as a coach. The record is 165 losses in an NFL coach, and there's somebody that's approaching it with great velocity at this point in time. Probably it may be next season before he sets the record, but his name is Bill Belichick. He's about to have the most losses in the NFL history. But is that how you would look at Bill Belichick if you?
No way.
Yeah, and what that did is it reminded me of another. We've talked about different financial planning ideas that nobody talks about, but I think one of the great lessons of life. I put this at my year 11 in life when I'm putting these lessons I've learned. But I came home from the Coca-Cola Little League game. That was our team, Coca-Cola, and I was just crying like a baby. 11 years old, maybe 12, crying like a baby. And my dad's like, "You need to knock this stuff off because we just got smoked. We got smoked so bad. I was so competitive."
Yeah.
And my teammates didn't care.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like being a Chicago Cubs fan. Sorry if you're there, but they don't. If you ever go to a Cubs game and they lose, and people are like after the game, it's like we didn't lose, and that's kind of the attitude my teammates had. And as an 11-year-old, I was so angry about that. I couldn't handle it. But I think, like, to do what we do best, we have to learn to lose, right? To be the best at what you do, you have to be the best loser. And so no matter that Belichick he's gonna set that record unless he retires or something. But that takes a lot of courage to embrace the loss, right? Like to embrace the loss. If I didn't embrace it, my dad didn't almost beat me in the head as an 11-year-old to embrace, you got to lose to win. That idea could be one of the most critical financial planning life lessons. Even if you're afraid to lose in life, that means you're afraid to try sometimes.
Yeah, it is hard to lose. It is so painful.
I quit playing competitive basketball as a 31-year-old man because I almost hurt somebody on the court.
Yeah.
And I just realized I just realized I couldn't even winning. I was like, and so the process of learning to balance those things takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of maturity and things.
Bill Belichick.
Who knew?
Babe Ruth. I mean, there's tons of stories like this.
Right. You can't be the best without also maybe having the worst performance in other areas. So it just goes with the turf.
It's cool.
Well, we got the Christmas tree up.
Yeah. Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks, Debbie.
Looks great.
We are looking forward to Santa Claus rally. We'll keep our fingers crossed. No guarantees.
Yeah. Yeah. Enjoy this weekend. And hey, take Christmas slow if you can. Look for ways to slow it down and just really enjoy December 8th.
Play the old school Christmas music. That's how you can slow it down. See you guys.